Neurodivergent Employees, Embracing and Valuing Autistic People in the Workforce. This webinar will be recorded and will be posted on the website along with the slides from today's presentation. Your lines are muted, but we invite your questions either in the Q&A or the chat functions. We'll be monitoring those questions and save time to answer some toward the end of the presentation. My colleague, Kirsten Baer, is on today with us as well to help facilitate the Zoom webinar. Just a little bit about ICSPS. We create, support, and deliver professional development for education professionals across Illinois, encouraging the achievement of special populations of learners. ICSPS was founded in 1977 at Illinois State University and is housed in the College of Education. ICSPS is proud to be working under the direction of the Special Education Division of the Illinois State Board of Education, or ISB, to develop and expand a variety of resources focused on the needs of students with autism spectrum disorder and other disabilities who are transitioning from secondary education to post-secondary education or the workforce. Oops, something just... So the goals of this project are to create resources that can be used by students with ASD, their family members, secondary and post-secondary educators, staff, employers, and members of the community to better understand the transition process and the unique barriers faced by individuals with ASD, and to assist them in working towards or providing equitable access in workplace and post-secondary settings. We will post the ADA website in the chat in a minute. On our site are 2 resources that are relevant to today's webinar. We don't have time to show this short video, but we'll post it in the chat. And we also have a PDF handout of 10 characteristics of successful ASD employees. We'll post these in the chat in just a second, but they'll also be in the slides for later. Before we get started, we'd like to learn a little bit more about you, our audience. The first question is, what region are you located in? And Kirsten is going to throw up the poll.
So both of the polls are on the same slide here. So I've launched both of them and you should be able to answer them simultaneously. So
Perfect.
the first one is, which region are you located in? And if you're joining us from out of state or statewide, we welcome you to put in the chat where you're joining us from if you're out of the state of Illinois. And then we also have, which ADA stakeholder do you best represent as well? And you should be able to click multiple of those. So if you best represent a community member, but also a family member, feel free to select both of those.
We'll give people a minute to answer. And then Kirsten, you'll show the results up on the screen, correct?
Yes, I will. I'll give everyone a couple more seconds because they're still coming in here since both polls are up at the same time. I see we have people joining us from New Jersey, Tennessee, Massachusetts, Missouri. Amazing. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Arizona, wow. Alaska, awesome. People from Washington, Michigan, Florida, New York, amazing. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, especially if you're on a different time zone. We appreciate it. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and end that poll and share the results. And so you can see we do have quite a few of you who are from out of state. You were putting those all in the chat. And quite a few of you are from Chicago and the northern part of the state as well. So welcome. Thank you for joining us this morning. And then our ADA stakeholders, Jen, if you'd like to go to the next slide, you're more than welcome to. We have mostly students and young adults and some community members, some family members, employers. So we are across the board. So thank you so much for participating in those polls. It's just some good analytics for us as we're planning future ADA webinars as well. So I'm going to hand it back off to Jen.
Thanks, Kirsten. So together with my son, George Miller, who will be moderating the panel today, We designed today's webinar, Neurodivergent Employees Embracing and Valuing Autistic People in the Workforce. Today, according to the CDC, 1 in 54 children in the United States are diagnosed on the autistic spectrum. That means that well over 500,000 autistic people will age into adulthood in the next decade. For autistic young adults and their families, it is troubling that 85% of autistic college graduates are unemployed or underemployed. Today's webinar will focus on the best practices and successful approaches that companies and training programs are using to recruit, hire, and support autistic employees. And importantly, our panelists will also highlight the value of neurodivergent people, the value that neurodivergent people bring into the company and workforce. I'm delighted to briefly introduce our panelists, and then we are going to let them self-introduce and tell you a little bit more about themselves, their companies, and their programs. Today's panelists represent 2 companies started by parents of autistic individuals, an autistic professional and advocate for neurodivergent employees, a company with robust and explicit neurodiversity initiative, and an educator nurturing talent in autistic young people. And today's moderator, George Miller, has experienced firsthand some of the barriers of entering the workforce as a neurodivergent person, such as algorithmic personality tests that are within many online job applications. So now to get on to introducing our panel. Tim Fox is a client account executive at CAI. CAI is a global company focused on consulting and transformation, as well as enterprise and operational services. CAI has been a core strategic partner in Disability IN's Autism at Work initiative. Jim Hogan is joining us today from Google Cloud. Jim wears multiple hats at Google, including his roles as Principal Innovation Strategist and as Vice President in Accessibility and Technology for Google's Disability Alliance Employee Resource Group. Jim is an innovator, a human rights activist, and a strong representative of what is possible for autistic individuals. Throughout his career, Jim has advocated for neurodistinct employees by helping human resource departments better understand their needs. With his powerful voice and advocacy for acceptance, he has led the way for hundreds of autistic individuals who have entered the workforce behind him. Carrie PC is the Talent and Operations Director at Autonomy Works. For those of you who are ATA regulars, Carrie presented in October 2020 about how Autonomy Works trains and hires autistic individuals. We'll post that presentation in the chat in a moment. And for those of you who may have missed seeing Autonomy Works featured on 60 Minutes and also in October 2020, we'll post that link in the chat as well. Our next panelist, Kenneth Mims, is an educator who sees the amazing talents within autistic individuals and is the founder and CEO of the Neurodiversity Education Research Center in Phoenix, Arizona. NERC operates Science Prep Academy, a private STEM college and career prep school for neurodiverse students with autism. Kenneth has been a professional STEM educator for over 20 years, teaching robotics, computer programming, and physical science courses. And finally, we'd like to introduce Dr. Moisha Weitzberg, the founder and CEO of Aspiritech. Like CAI, Aspiritech is a core strategic partner in the Autism at Work initiative. Aspiritech is a world-class QA testing company that empowers individuals on the autistic spectrum to fulfill their potential through meaningful employment combined with social opportunity. I'd like to welcome you all today. Before I turn the floor over to the panelists, we'd like to just give you a few more facts for context. Just a moment ago, I mentioned Disability IN's Autism at Work playbook. This slide just represents the similarities between our ATA handout on key characteristics of employees who are on the spectrum, as well as the list of strategic benefits to companies who have started neurodiversity initiatives. We'll throw that link in the chat as well in a second. This slide is also just for context to show the breadth of the companies that have launched neurodiversity initiatives. Again, this is not an exhaustive list, but it does show the breadth of the companies that are seeing the value of hiring neurodivergent employees. And then part of the core of the webinar today is the common success factors. Like when you look across neurodivergent hiring initiatives, there are a few key success factors that emerge. And again, this is not an exhaustive list, but they include the acknowledgement that neurodiversity is a strength and a competitive advantage. They acknowledge the importance of recruitment and assessment, including specific job descriptions and interview structures that may look different than they do for neurotypical individuals. The importance of training and onboarding, including job shadowing, internships, apprenticeships. The importance of support and accommodations. Carrie may be talking about this in a moment, but Autonomy Works uses a show me, guide me, and support me model. And finally, the importance of training and understanding and acceptance building for neurotypicals about neurodiversity. And with that, I am going to stop the slides for a second. And Tim, I believe you are first up, so I'll stop my slides.
Thanks, Jen.
Oops.
Good morning, everyone. So my name is Tim Fox, and I am the client executive for CAI's Autism Work, which has now been sort of changed to Neurodiverse Solutions. And so we've been around for about, I'm going to try to get through this if I can. So that you guys can, everyone can see my screen. I'm assuming you can. So CAI's been around about 40 years. We're an IT consulting firm. We have about 6,500 associates worldwide. We're a for-profit organization. So I say that because we measure all the work these folks do. So the neurodiverse talent that we have is we measure all their work. So we are always in solution mode, trying to solve a business problem. So we've been around about 40 years. We started this practice about 7 years ago. We do everything from application support, development, quality assurance testing. And I think I don't need to kind of go to this slide. I think everyone understands what neurodiversity is. And then so our Autism Work practice, we help organizations sort of solution and solve a business problem, which I think is really important. We use the existing talent and technology to power the possibility for our clients, which is really something really expensive. We have a whole turnkey solution. So we start the recruiting, the selection, and the training of these team members. We have what we call talent discovery sessions, which is kind of our old way of saying our job readiness training. And what we've done is we've been able to master the process of finding these folks, developing these folks, getting them ready for the workforce, so that on the first day they're ready to start working. It's kind of that, and it's a 5-day program that we do with regards to our with our job readiness training. So that's super important because once we've developed the solution, what we do is we put these are just some of our client partnerships and affiliations that we've had. I'm super excited to share that with Northern Trust. We have about 9 folks there that are on the autism spectrum that have been working there doing. They're working in their IT metrics and analytics division. They're validating risk-related data and integrity for the CIO, which is great. We've actually just promoted 2 of those people from testers to developers, and we're backfilling those current spots now. And we've actually promoted someone who's actually going to be a team lead, which I'll get into just a second on that one. So it's kind of a team-based model. So the way we work it is that CAI puts together usually a team of 4 to 6 individuals on the spectrum with a team lead who's neurotypical like you and I, and who has some who's autism certified and who has some background in the technologies that they're going to be working in. And once we hire that person, then we have what we call our talent diverse discovery session, which is kind of our old job readiness training, where we put them through a series. That's basically the interview. It's 5 days long. They build a robot. We actually find out how they learn. And at that time, we're also working with the management team of the clients and the organizations that we're working with. And then that team lead then creates metrics for these folks for the client, so that we meet with them on a weekly, monthly basis, whatever they prefer, and so that we can get them ready for the workforce. We can also, when we review the metrics, they get to see, because this really is a career development program. So we're showing these folks how they can do that. So this is kind of how it works. And so what we've done is we usually have a meet and greet for like 3 hours where we introduce the folks to the program, kind of what I'm doing with you folks. And then we then our team then begins to start looking for candidates, and also our team leads. And then most of them are kind of entry-level positions. That's how we start. And then we pay these people a fair wage. They get paid like anyone else. They get benefits like anybody else. So that's kind of a key thing as well. And there's always areas for room and growth. And then as I talked about the 5-day job readiness training, then that's really sort of the interview, as I mentioned before. And I said, the nice thing is about that is that we get a real feel for how they learn. Some people learn verbally, some people learn by example. It all depends. I mean, as you know, if you've met someone with autism, you've met someone with autism. And then during that time, we actually invite the client to these job readiness training to get to see, to learn about these folks. And then finally, the last thing we do is we do like an environmental scan. So if it's actually on site, we actually get a chance to bring these folks in, show them we're going to be working. We've done a lot of this work remotely, and obviously, as you can imagine, for the past 2 years, we've transferred a lot of on-site work to actually remote work, and we've actually seen an increase in productivity by almost 25%. So actually, they're working better at home than they were in the office. So that's super exciting that I've been able to share that with you. So these are just some of the jobs that have fit that we've used in the past. These are not exclusive to this. We do a lot of testing and fraud investigation, and we do a lot of finance and HR. We have a team at Kirkland Ellis, the largest law firm in the world. They're in their risk management department. We've got teams at Northern Trust, Capital One, Citibank. We're talking to Wintrust right now in Chicago. So doing a lot of testing and a lot of that sort of repetitive sort of pattern recognition work that seems to be really well. And then after a year, the way our program works, if they want to hire their contractors, well, that's for 1 year. And if they want to hire these folks after 1 year and kind of roll them over, that's what we do, because we're really about career development for them. We don't charge a fee for that. And so from like 30,000 feet, that kind of gives you an idea of kind of how our program works. I wanted to get through that 5 minutes, Jennifer, as quickly as I possibly can. So, and then if anyone has an interest in kind of pursuing or talking to us, we've had over 290 folks go through our job readiness training. We have about 170 to 180 folks on Spectrum right now, actually out of the workforce, making a difference in full-time careers. So thank you very much for letting me share that, and I will unshare my screen.
Tim, thank you so much. I will put in the second, Tim also shared a great video about CAI's program, and I'll throw that in the chat in a minute. It's in the slide pack as well.
Yeah, it's about one of our resources, Sean, and his journey, as well as from the client perspective as well, and the business value that they got. So it was a win-win for both the folks on the spectrum and then the people on the people in the company too. So it was great.
Perfect. All right, Jim, welcome. Take it away.
Welcome. I feel so unprepared. I have no slides, but I am here, and I have my Rubik's Cube. So, and I'm Jim Hogan. My pronouns are he, him, autistic, and people ask me why I use autistic as a pronoun, and the reason is the same way I use he, him, because I was born this way. I didn't go walk through a jungle someplace and catch autism and became inflicted with something. This is part of a normal human occurrence. So I work at Google, and for the 37 years before I came to Google, I was brutalized at every position I had. Even if I started a company, I was bullied, and bullied by vendors, bullied by partners, bullied by investors, bullied. So finally, sometime around right when COVID broke out, I decided that I was going to retire. And my friend who works at Google said, no, we're going to invite you to come work at Google. I'm going to refer you in. You're going to love it. And she was right. After a small, growing pain of just trying to find the right team that I was comfortable with, I was able to come in and what happened to me, what changed, and people ask me this all the time because I've been working for 37 years. And at that point, and what happened to me is when I got the Google job, the opportunity was in the pipeline and we were interviewing. I say we because my wife and I are partners in all things Jim's career related things. We basically were looking at the opportunity and very excited about it. And it was like, don't tell your family, she said. We don't want anybody to know if we're basically just another opportunity. And if you get it, great. So I was very excited when I got the job offer, and I video conferenced with my mom, who was back in Michigan, and it's COVID time. So I hadn't seen her in almost a year. And I told her that, I got a job at Google, Mom. And here she is, this person who worried about me her entire life. My entire working career since I was 16 years old, I've been doing what I do. And we basically, had this beautiful, warm moment over video chat. And I was due to fly out there on Saturday to see her. So I just ended the call and, see you on Saturday, Mom. And she died on me on Friday night. And then that was the same weekend that George Floyd was murdered. And when I was looking at the video and seeing me mourning for my mom and George calling out for his mom, I was connected to something that I had never felt like I was connected to before. And I was basically stripped down raw and reborn, no longer a self-advocate. Now I'm what everybody calls an activist. And I basically said, I'm not going to sit idly by and watch people get bullied. I don't care if it's on a schoolyard or if it's police brutality or any of these social conditions that we're suffering from today. And across corporate America, the fact that we struggle so much to get into a great job, and then there's all kinds of jackasses in the world, and I can say that, Jennifer, it's just a donkey. There's so many donkeys in the world that brutalize us, and it's to the point that, it's not just enough to find somebody a job. You have to create the whole world around them has to be a safe haven. And I speak from somebody that, 18 years ago, I was hospitalized. I was put in the hospital for 2.5 weeks because I completely diverted back to nonverbal autistic after being brutalized at a corporate environment. And when you have a victim who's being brutalized, all of a sudden the mental health aspects associated with that, you become a victim. And you're actually become the victim of blame as well. It's mental health stigma plus hostile workplace. It basically leads to the victim being the one who's brutalized by the company, who's thrown out of the company. And so these are the type of things we need to change, because it hasn't changed much since that happened. So, and I'll never forget, on our 2-year wedding anniversary, my wife was looking at me through an 8x8 observation window in a mental institution. And people see me and they meet me face to face and they realize, like, Jim is this big burly guy. Like, he's 6'4", 280, knows how to handle himself. But what they don't understand is that I have a fragility in my mind. And when people find that vulnerability, and people who value cruelty over kindness, they will come after me. And people like to torment people. That's just a sad fact. So I am here to represent all the people who are entering, and I'm the after person. Bring people into the environment. And I don't really like to create a pipeline of people, particular individuals, or talk about the characteristics of these people versus these people, because that's an othering activity to me. But what I do guarantee is that I'm working to make the environment less exclusive, because it's not about being more inclusive. I want to make sure that people can actually get through the process, get the job that they want, and have that safe haven in the company that decides to bring them in. So that's all for my introduction. I'm a little long-winded, but Tim had slides. This is just me and my Rubik's Cube. Thank you very much for listening.
Jim, that was amazing. Thank you so much for that. I have to say that as a neurotypical parent, I'm on a learning journey myself, and learning not to bully George. And George, I don't know if you want, before we pass it over to Ken, do you want to say anything about what Jim just said and your experiences?
Sure. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Very simply, I have also struggled with some bullying in high school. And when I tried to look for a part-time job, I had a lot of problems with the online, like, personality tests, like my mom said, and like where I wouldn't get a response of any kind. And then there was a lot of problems there. And I totally agree about when somebody sees a weakness, they tend to go for it, which it's sad but true.
Thanks, George. Kenneth, welcome. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for this opportunity, putting together this event, having opportunities to talk, empowering individuals, is really the key. Well, my name is Ken Mims. I'm based in Phoenix, Arizona. My bachelor's degree is actually in physics. And that's really what started this journey. I transitioned to public education while I was an 8th grade middle school teacher in Gwinnett County, Georgia public school system, I was an inclusion teacher, and I had a student ask a very high level question one day, which blew my mind. And I couldn't, believe it. Most of my students were not engaged. But this student had an extra teacher, sat by himself in the classroom, sat by himself in the lunch cafeterias, and just didn't understand the social norms of an 8th grade middle school classroom. So I found out exactly who he was. He was new. Found out he had a learning disability called autism. At that time, I never heard of the term autism before. And my background was really in physics, and education was a transition. I was working on a master's degree at the time to get certified as a science teacher, but also a master's degree in broad field science to teach all sciences. And I found out that the characteristics of autism reminded me of myself, but also my peers in the physics community, as far as my professors, my grad students. I had the pleasure of doing a lot of research, and the characteristics of thinking outside the box, thinking on things for a long period of time, hyper focus, but then, some of the so-called weaknesses, which is communication, self-regulation, self-advocacy, but most importantly, something called, theory of mind, understanding others' perspectives and emotions. And a light bulb just went off. It was, for some reason, the individuals that I came across, just had a natural love for science, and I had a natural love for science. So we had a common love, and that's what really sparked me, caused my passion to take a pivot, and for me to really, dedicate my career, to opening up opportunities and creating pathways for individuals that are neurodivergent, autistic, to have an opportunity in the STEM career workforce. I later transitioned to Arizona and opened up a school called Science Prep Academy, which is a STEM school for individuals that are neurodivergent. We have a partnership with Amazon as an Amazon Future Engineer School with the AP Computer Science Pathway curriculum. But somewhere down the line, we're in our 5th year, I came across Temple Grandin. And actually I met Temple in the airport, in all places. And I built a relationship up with her. And, she really challenged me. And she actually had a chance to come visit our school, our parents, but she challenged me. She basically said, Ken, I travel everywhere, and a lot of people are doing a lot of great things, but people are not sharing. So she challenged me to really share and reconsider our model as a school, as an organization. Private schools for the most part have a revenue value system based upon students and more schools. But talking to Temple Grandin, I said, you know what, I want to share this information. And so we transitioned to a education research center, where our goal now is to partner with stakeholders like colleges, universities, companies, and other school districts, and conduct research and best practices. And these best practices will be used in the future to advocate for policy and legislation and funding that will be able to have a long-lasting and systemic impact into some of the issues that I see. And currently we have a partnership with ASU and received the National Science Foundation Computer Science for All grant, which we're working on right now, which is amazing. Recently, we also hosted a college and career summit. We had universities like University of Maryland, Georgia Tech, Drexel participate in a conversation to understand and identify some of the challenges that are taking place. And we're looking just to be a support to all stakeholders and really add a research component of it, because to move forward, we want to take the role of taking some of the liability. When I say liability, I mean cost and just understanding. So as a research organization, we can apply for grants, we can conduct research, we can partner in a different way that individuals, universities, or companies can. So we're really excited about this opportunity and really excited about the conversation today. And I appreciate you so much.
Kenneth, thank you. I was just trying to post the link to the College and Career Summit, which I'll do in a second, and ended up posting Tim's CAI link. But I should have said this to you when I was introducing, but George and I modeled this session on the NERC College and Career Employer Summit session, which we both attended back in October. So anybody who's on the line, there are, I think, at least 5 sessions. That was that day-long conference. Every minute is valuable. So I'll throw it up in just a second. All right, Carrie, the floor is yours. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Jennifer, and thank you everyone for joining us today. It's a pleasure to be with you. And let's see, you guys able to see my screen? Are you seeing my PowerPoint?
We can, yes.
Excellent, awesome. So going to give you a little bit of an introduction to Autonomy Works, kind of who we are and what we do. By way of introduction, my name is Carrie PC. I am the Director of Talent and Operations here at Autonomy Works. I have a 20-year career focused on helping to provide employment opportunities for individuals with disabilities. By training, I am a certified rehabilitation counselor, fluent in American Sign Language, and have executive education in social impact strategy. My business background is focused in operations management for a team of 40 people here at our Autonomy Works office in Downers Grove. 80% of which of our team members have autism spectrum disorder. I am passionate about matching the skills of people with autism to the needs of businesses in the community. A little bit of background on Autonomy Works for you. Autonomy Works was founded by Dave Friedman back in 2013, so we're about 10 years old. And Autonomy Works came to be when Dave and his wife began to think about Matthew. Matthew is Dave's oldest son, and Matthew was the inspiration for Autonomy Works. So when Matthew began his transition journey in high school, Dave and his wife began to think about what Matt was going to do post-transition. And they knew that Matt had some really awesome skills. He was passionate about sports and numbers and analytics and mathematics. And then he also had some challenges that were going to present themselves when Matt went to look for work in the world. So Dave left his corporate career back in 2013 to found Autonomy Works to match the skills of his son Matt and many others with the needs of the business world. Our mission at Autonomy Works is simple. It is to change the way that the world views people with autism. And we really like to do that by focusing on the business needs of our clients. So we look for clients in really 2 different categories, but some consistent characteristics to the type of clients that we look for. We look for businesses that have a need for 100% accuracy in their work, repetitive work that can be done and can often be complex and costly to automate. We look for businesses that have recruiting challenges and want to impact their turnover. They're having challenges with that. They can't hire people to do the jobs that they're hiring for. And in companies that have a lack of employee motivation on tasks that they don't like to do, we take that work from our clients and we match it to the skills of our people with autism. And our team brings to the table exceptional attention to detail, intense focus, an affinity for repetitive work, an obsession with quality and accuracy, and really what I like to say is a desire to master tasks and gain expertise. So many times we see individuals that like to jump from task to tasks. We have found that many of our team members really like to dig in and gain expertise and master the tasks that they are assigned and become really great at those. We do have 2 different types of positions available at Autonomy Works. We have a computer associate position. All of our computer associate positions are based at our office location in Downers Grove. We do have some remote options available for individuals who are unable to get to Downers Grove. The type of tasks that we do for our clients on the computer side are things like transaction processing, quality assurance of dynamic assets, so things like websites or advertisements that are online, reporting and analytics, and some AI with intelligent document understanding as well. We have part-time hours available for our team members, and we also have a pre-employment training and some flexible scheduling. So Jennifer, I appreciate that you posted the link to that longer presentation there. If you are interested in digging in a bit more to our recruiting process and our training methodologies, there is some additional information in that PowerPoint shared back in October 2020. We also have some manufacturing associate positions available. These positions are located in West Chicago, and these are basic manufacturing tasks that we're doing. So we're doing things like putting pieces into bags, putting bags into boxes, assembling, sealing, weighing, and labeling boxes, as well as refilling production supplies for our client in West Chicago. We have job coaches and a sensory room on site. Again, pre-employment training and flexible scheduling available. Our recruiting process is pretty unique. So we don't ask individuals to interview with us. We don't ask individuals to bring a resume, to dress up in a suit and tie and come meet us and answer questions. We really want to give people the opportunity to show us their skills versus tell us about their skills. So we do that by inviting interested candidates to attend a job shadow with us, progress to an assessment day, if necessary, participate in our training program and/or an on-the-job apprenticeship, and then move into long-term employment opportunities with Autonomy Works. To date, we've had some success in doing this. So as Jennifer mentioned, we had the good fortune of being featured on 60 Minutes in October 2020 with Anderson Cooper, and got to share the skills and talents of our team members with, I think, something like 17 million viewers that tuned in that evening. And we were very honored to have that privilege. For our business, we have a team of about 45 people right now between our manufacturing work and our computer associate work. 80% of our team members have autism. We serve large clients like PepsiCo, Land O'Lakes, and Bridgestone Tires. Our clients report things like reduction in errors, reduction in costs, and increased employee engagement on their side. But more than that, we're not just focused on building a business, we're focused on building lives and having that social impact for the individuals that we employ. Over 200 times each week, a person with autism gets up and comes to work at Autonomy Works. Our associates are taking on management tasks and responsibilities. 95% of our associates independently manage transportation. 100% of our team members have bank accounts, and our associates report that Autonomy Works is the best place to work, that we have a very supportive environment, and they really like that our focus is on accountability and on the skills and talents that they bring to our workforce. So thank you so much. I look forward to our panel discussion. If anyone has any follow-up questions, I've listed my contact information there. Thank you.
Carrie, thank you. Fantastic. And last but not least, Dr. Moishe Weitzberg is going to talk about Aspiritech, similar journey as a parent of an autistic individual. Moishe, the floor is yours.
Hi, everyone. Can you see me? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So again, my name is Moshe Weitzberg, and we, my wife and I, we founded Aspiritech, and in 2-3 months we are going to leave and retire. I just turned 70. Like you, Kenneth, I'm a scientist. I worked in drug discovery at the Johns Hopkins and at Abbott for 35 years. I retired, and then I went to teach in the university, chemistry, physics, and math, when my wife asked me to build Aspiritech. Aspiritech was built on a model that started in Europe. We were the third company in the world of doing quality assurance. Quality assurance is an extremely difficult thing to do. Very few people can do it well. And many people on the spectrum, for many reasons, excel in this work. We employ individuals on the autism spectrum. We teach them the profession. We do not take people with experience. And they go up in the company. And let me give you the bottom line. We have more than 100 people who are diagnosed with autism. We have 22 leads, people that communicate with clients on a daily basis. Each one of them is on the spectrum. Each one of them started from the bottom, studying the profession by us. We have 4 QA managers. And again, each one started without any knowledge of QA. Each one spent years with us and slowly become a QA manager. So in fact, the entire operation is managed by people on the spectrum. We give competitive salaries. It is exceptionally a critical work for the client, because this day, if you bring to the market a product with a problem, guess what? Either they return it or they are not using it, or they will use another program. So it was the first few years, it was very difficult to convince companies that people with autism, adults with autism, can do such critical work. Right now, we have more work than people. And as of yesterday, we just hired 5 new people. And 2 weeks ago, we hired another one. They went through the basic training, and we are about to train more. We moved also the first time from training remotely. Before we trained people in the office, and it looks like we are going to train many more people, because we cannot meet the demand for our work. Our largest client is Bose. It gives us like $4 million contract. We are now like $6.5 million company. People, and as I said, we have our own model, and I will talk about it a little later, but this is the main achievement. And you can smell probably that we are not exactly inclusive. However, the interaction with the client, the daily interaction, and things that right now the client invite our people for the bug board when they decide which bug to fix, which not to fix. They looking at the suggestion, and they treat our people as total equal. And the client give us more and more work. And I can also, I don't have slides, and I can tell you, we have major clients. We have Abbott and AbbVie and Astellas Pharmaceutical, we have JP Morgan Chase, GS, we have, of course, both. We started with Amazon a few weeks ago, etc. And we expanded our work. We not only doing QA, we're doing accessibility, and we do also automation, and we're starting to provide some development. I think with this, I'll finish the introduction. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Moishe. Okay, George, I'm going to turn it over to you to kick off the panel roundtable and introduce yourself.
Thank you, Jennifer. I'd like to start the Q&A portion with a question to the panelists that, so you guys are going to answer all the questions. We're estimating 3 minutes per response per panelist. And I'm thinking we can start off that first question to Jim. Jim, are you ready to start us off?
I'm readily available, yes.
Wonderful.
Go ahead.
The question is that there are many programs that will help increase the employment opportunities for those on the spectrum, and they focus heavily on preparation for neurotypical workplace cultures and environments. What steps could employers take to additionally shift their workplace cultures to be more welcoming, such that these employees will thrive more and struggle less?
And I love this question. So, because this is what I always talk about when individuals come to me and say, you know, we want to do an autism hiring program, and my response in my brain is like, don't do us any favors. The reality is that unless workplaces are ready for individuals to come in, and you build that safe harbor for them, all you're going to do is create opportunities for individuals to be misunderstood. So that's why at Google Cloud, when we did our autism career program, we don't call it a hiring program because we want to make sure we're spearheading and shepherding the individual when they arrive. And we actually retrained 400 hiring managers. We didn't retrain 400 hiring managers on how to interview autistic candidates. What we did is we taught them how to interview everyone. And so because there's a huge misnomer that we need to do something different. What we need to do is make our process less exclusive. So we need to remove those unconditional biases that allow people to be removed from the hiring pool because they don't make eye contact, or they stim, or they stutter, or whatever. A lot of these things are based on societal norms that have existed for decades. So our program was to train folks to understand, the definition of neurodiversity, and for interviewing people like me who are neurodistinct. And I use the word neurodistinct as opposed to neurodiverse is because neurodiversity is everybody. That's what we teach at Google. Neurodiversity is the entire population of Earth, just like diversity. So, and I say that I have a physical distinction, which is blue eyes, but I was also born autistic, which is a neurological distinction. So that's why I always identify as a neurodistinct individual. And we do trainings like this inside Google to make sure individuals understand, that the world is very unfair sometimes when it comes to unconscious bias and societal norms. And I guarantee you, whoever wrote those societal norms is not autistic or was not autistic. So, but hopefully I answered your question, George. I tend to wander. So
The answer was it was a very good answer. I would now like to ask whichever one of the panelists would like to go next. The floor is open to answer this question.
Well, I'm unmuted, so I'll go next. I think
Wonderful.
One of the most important things is you have to build a support structure for all the employees, whether that's an ERG or a BRG for neurodiverse. I think those are all super important. I did like the fact that he had mentioned about how they interview everybody, and eliminate the exclusivity of that thing. So I think another piece of that is to bring in experts like CAI that talk about building programs and what it means for the organization, have some structure around that. I think that's kind of what we do, especially is that when we start a program in an organization, our goal was to eventually let that organization end up doing it on their own at some point. And we did that at JP Morgan Chase, where we started with a team of 4. We grew it to over 75. They wouldn't do this program if they thought that they were, if they weren't getting a business value out of it, for one thing, and two, they were looking to kind of grow their own program at that point. That's kind of what they did. It's also about onboarding. I think that meeting that people that come in that are new, that are coming into your organization, either neurodivergent or neurotypical, are making sure that you have a training piece that talks about diversity. I think those are key pieces to kind of what we do. I think those are super important when you're talking about, either starting a neurodiversity program or trying to, as Jim said, kind of like eliminate some of that unconscious bias. I think that's part of what's helpful. I hope that made sense.
That made a lot of sense.
I would like to respond a little bit too.
Wonderful. Moishe, why don't we go to you?
Okay, so the 3 questions are sort of related. They're talking about a diverse workplace, inclusive, which we are not really, but we are. So what we have at Autistic, so I want to say what we saw people that came with such a low self-esteem, such insecurity, and right now they are managers. And I will not even go into details, but the transformation is huge. So what do? We address sensory issues. If it is sound or light, if it is place to relax with every blanket, a temporal grandin help us a lot as well. We have 5 what we call ESS, which is a support group, employee support specialist, people with the right background that help people. We have one-on-one meeting at least once a week with every person, either by the lead and also by the support. You have to remember that, in my opinion, everyone at a Spirit Tech on the spectrum has something else as well. It's called comorbidity or co-occurring issues, which include OCD, mood disorder, depression, gender identity, and they all need support. And we need to get the environment right. But on top of that, we are a community. We have social activities, which maybe not call them really social, but activities. If it's on Sunday, it's 5 hours. We used to go to activities, but now we're doing it by Zoom, etc. So that was a big part of what happened, is the support that each one of our people give each other. So, and this is a challenge for employers, because we are a not-for-profit and we can afford giving all this support that many workplaces, it will be very difficult for many workplaces. I can go more into details later. And I can tell you that, okay, I'll talk about it. Okay, I'll mention it now, that when the regular workplace, people trying to get promoted, people are trying to get more recognition, etc. So there's a lot of competition. And it's very difficult with this competition at the regular workplace to, for the people, for our people on the spectrum. We don't have this competition that is slightly unfair inside the Spirit Tech. And by the way, we have more than 20 people that moved on to competitive environment doing QA in many companies, etc. And so I think the transition, now this is not our goal. Our goal, it used to be our goal. Now we want them to have a full career at a Spirit Tech, but the fact is that people that start at a Spirit Tech are much more comfortable to go into the neurotypical workplace. That's it. Sorry for the lengthy answer.
It was a good answer. Thank you. Carrie, would you like to go next?
Absolutely, happy to chime in there. Thank you, George. So when we're talking with employers, we recommend 3 steps that employers can take to help make the workplace culture a bit more welcoming. Obviously, we know it doesn't solve all of the problems, but it is a great place to start. One is with the interviewing process, and really try to focus that more on skills versus resumes to help with some of that bias and automatically disqualifying people from the process if they may not have job history or skills. So really taking that opportunity to look at the interviewing process and see how we can get more individuals with autism to progress through the hiring process and be able to actually meet with a hiring manager. The second thing that we talk about is written communication. Anytime an employer can provide written communication in things like meetings or email follow-up agendas, focusing on that written communication so that an individual with autism can process that information during the meeting while receiving that verbal or audio input, that they have something written to back up on and process as they'd like to during their time. And then the third recommendation we have is clear and concise feedback. So many times our managers in neurotypical environments are taught the compliment sandwich, which might look something like, Jennifer, I wanted you to know that you're doing a great job for us, but unfortunately, you made a couple of mistakes today, and the client was really upset with that, and So if you could try not to do that next time, but keep up the good work and great job. That's the compliment sandwich, right? You say something nice, you give the real feedback, and then you compliment it with something nice on the end. We teach our managers and our leads and our associates here that we want to get to that clear and concise feedback, which would not be the opposite of that compliment sandwich, and really saying, Jennifer, we wanted to let you know that there were several mistakes made today. Our expectation is that we follow the process the client gave to us and that we're checking our work prior to sending it off. And we don't confuse that with different messages. So being clear and concise in that feedback and communication so that everyone knows what to expect. And those are good practices for any neurodiverse, neurodistinct, any person that employers are managing, is to try and be clear and concise in feedback and direction.
Absolutely. And if I'm going to jump in, George, just for a second, because as a parent, George's dad and I are learning to communicate more neurodivergent rather than always expecting George to communicate in a neurotypical way, right? It's not really fair to have someone constantly have to figure out how to speak to us. It's a both and, it's both ways in the middle. But yeah, great point, Carrie. Thank you. Sorry, George. I didn't mean to jump in.
It's okay. Kenneth, do you want to add on?
Yeah, I do have just a couple of things. And my perspective
Awesome.
is just a little bit long-term, from a long-term perspective. So I agree with everybody. But looking from a long-term perspective, as far as how to shift the workplace culture as a whole, I think employers could, take a research-based, perspective, and that includes two particular aspects. One is, the model, and what I'm seeing is some companies are doing an excellent job, and they have an excellent model, and I think it's an opportunity for companies to really share their model, so other companies can learn, best practices, so they can incorporate those best practices into their particular workspace, and instead of trying to reinvent the wheel. There's a lot of great opportunities to partnership. Also internship opportunities. Research shows that internship opportunities for individuals that are neurodiverse is the probability that they will have a successful transition and sustainability in a position. And internship opportunities could be done through partnerships with colleges, but also partnerships going all the way down to high school programs. And because what I find is parents and high school students are not aware, of potential job opportunities. They're not aware of college opportunities as well, as far as the hundreds of college programs that are out there, but as far as the reality that there are jobs. And what I'm finding is that there is actually a bottleneck going on. And what I mean by that is that looks like there's more job opportunities than actually potential candidates that I'm seeing. And that may be a regional thing, or that may be a national crisis going on. But in order to, and it is not really the responsibility of companies, but I think it's in the best interest of companies maybe to kind of go over and beyond, in which in the long term, will benefit, their actual workforce and culture of their workforce.
Thank you all for your great responses to the first question. We're going to move on to the second question now. And for this one, I think we're going to start with, actually, I'll take volunteers. Does anyone want to start and be the first to answer this question? Okay. So then I guess I will call on Carrie, and I'm going to read the question now. In addition to training the neurodiverse employees for existing neurotypical environments, it's also necessary to train neurotypical employees. Committing to training both groups is paramount to successful integration or successfully integrating neurodiverse employees into workplace culture smoothly. Training efforts for existing neurotypical employees seek to create a workplace environment where neurodiverse employees do not feel they need to mask, and as such, they can achieve greater success in collaborative tasks. What specific elements of the training programs for existing neurotypical employees have been most effective in your experience?
Thank you, George. That's a fantastic question. And obviously there's a lot there to unpack in just a few minutes. But I'll address it with kind of the three things that we've learned over the past decade and working with employers and seeing some of these shifts start to take place, or where we might suggest that they do. The first suggestion here is to listen to your employees. Talk to your employees, ask them what they need, ask them how you can best meet their needs, what is going to work best for them, what do they need to feel successful. So we can't emphasize that enough, but talk to your people constantly and understand their needs, because everyone's needs are different. And that's the very best place that we can suggest starting. The second is with some general corporate management training. Again, for neurotypical or neurodiverse individuals, that good management training is applicable to everyone. Things like setting clear expectations, clear role definition and explanation, clear outcomes and objectives, and that direct feedback. So those are best practices for management in any organization. And we recommend people training on those to make sure that managers are equipped with those for all of their employees, not just the neurodiverse individuals on their team. And the third is spreading awareness. So we have found, as we've talked to some employers, to some individuals out in the corporate community, that there still is a lack of awareness of autism, what autism is, what the skills and talents are of people with autism. And the fact is that autism is a spectrum. And there are individuals on the spectrum who require quite a bit more support than some other individuals on the spectrum. And when we talk with employers, sometimes they have a very specific picture in their head about what autism is. Maybe they gleaned that from a movie or from a neighbor or a friend or something, but helping to expand their horizons and open up their mind to understanding that autism is a spectrum. There is uniqueness across the entire spectrum, and that individuals with autism often have very valuable skills that they can bring to the workforce.
Thank you. How about we go to Tim next for answering this one?
Oh, no, thank you. Appreciate that, George. So I think there's, to answer the question, I think that I think is important is what training programs for existing neurotypicals have been most effective. And I think that, well, there's a couple of them. So for us, there are programs that are out there like the IBCCES, which is the International Board of Credential and Continuing Education Standards. They're kind of the global leader in training professionals to work with neurodivergent individuals. I think that's a great course. All of our team leads are IBCCES certified. I'm certified, actually, as a matter of fact. So I think, and also part of our program that we put together when we're solutioning it in organizations is that we partner and we also help train that workforce. So we have organizational readiness when we're looking to implement a program, which involves, kind of on-site visits, environmental reviews, and taking a look at the client's culture, that we compare both our associates and the client. I think the other thing that we do is we offer what we call autism awareness training, which is this LMS system. So if you're going to have 15 or 20 people on a floor, if you send us their email addresses, we then send them this link to an LMS system that they can start and stop on as much as they want. And they can, it's about 35 or 40 minutes long. It's kind of neat. Gives them a general feel from 10,000 feet on how to kind of work with some of the folks. It gives them a little bit of education. Then we can also, and then we don't charge the client for that as well. That's part of our upfront training that we do. And lastly, what we do is the other piece is if they want us to come on site, they'd like us to be a little more detailed. We'll do that too as well. No cost to the client too. So we'll actually come in and give them more training if that's what they're looking for. I think those two things are certainly important. I mean, I think that as Carrie made a great point, that some people are sort of pigeonholed based on either a neighbor or someone like that, and that, if you met someone with autism, you met someone with autism. So they're always different. So I think that this training, the IBCCES and our autism awareness training, I think are two really great tools that our clients have used and that they found to be very beneficial when talking about how to sort of get these programs out there and kind of educate the folks that are that are out there, that the training programs that I think that are really most effective. And that really kind of helps shape the culture. And I think the best thing about it is that what we found is the managers have become better managers from our team leads. So as our team leads are the liaison between the folks on spectrum and the work that they're doing and the managers that they're reporting to, they're having these one-on-ones with managers and having these one-on-ones with the folks on spectrum. So they're actually doing kind of a dual role, which is awesome. And they're actually really kind of making managers more effective because they're opening up their minds about working with these folks. I hope that kind of answers. Does that give a little feel?
Yeah, that was both of the answers we've gotten so far for the second question have been really wonderful. How about we go to Kenneth next, and then obviously we're gonna have to tailor this a little bit, so it's instead of for the employees and employers, then it'll be for the educators that you have worked with.
Yeah, and I can speak on both to some degree. You know, the creation of our school at Neurodiversity Education Research Center gave us an opportunity to develop and examine best practices that we see that works in K-12, but also works in college and career. And what we see in K-12 model is this aspect of mental health, this aspect of isolation, depression, and unfortunately transitioning to suicidal thoughts. And this is something real. When we talk about autism or neurodivergent or neurodiversity, you know, it's a social and emotional developmental, you know, disability or delay. You know, sometimes we overlook it's social and emotional. So in the workplace, when we talk about masking, or we talk about camouflaging, and it's still seen in the school environment, but in the workplace, you know, and in school place, what does that really mean? How does that affect somebody? How do you know emotionally? You know that turns into anxiety. You know, that turns into depression. That turns into isolation. So now we're talking about either being in a school, a college, or a workforce environment where you have someone that is not in a really a positive state, or mental, you know, in a positive mental space, you know, and that's really, you know, the core at core. So how can we create an environment, be it school or workplace, that is positive? So at our school, at the School Science Prep Academy, we use what's called PBS, or positive behavior support. And so our school is totally positive, you know, over positive. And what I mean by that, there's no type of punishment, no type of consequences, and we go over and beyond. And it is really based upon what they call trauma-informed practices. And I know this is a stretch for the workforce culture to transition into it, but I think these best practices that we're discovering that works, you know, can be transferred to any environment, and for any individual, be it neurodivergent or not. So the question is really, how do we create a positive workplace environment? And we see companies like Google, you know, who have different practices that's already in place, you know, that take in consideration of, you know, the mental health, you know, the opportunities to have breaks, the opportunities to, you know, to be considerate. So how do we train other employees to be considerate of individuals' mental health needs? You know, if you have a coworker that had a family member that died, or a dog that died, or, you know, someone got divorced, or someone passed away, those type of things, you know, what type of workforce culture do we have that has, you know, mechanisms in place that's supportive? And so I would just, you know, advocate, you know, those considerations, you know, and those considerations are things that, you know, are not only great, you know, beneficial to individuals that are neurodivergent, but just, you know, for everybody, and to create a very positive and healthy workplace.
Thank you so much. That was a great answer. All three of you, great answers.
Can I say something very small?
Yes.
The most
Wonderful.
important thing that we have to tell employees in a neurotypical environment is to treat the employees the same way, not to infantilize it, not to infantilize them. I think what Kenneth just said, I agree 100%. And we see these things all the time, so I will not repeat it. But don't listen to their concerns. They are usually if they say something, if they're concerned, don't just dismiss it. It will be okay, etc. And beware of the language. They sometimes will miss nuances, double meaning, sarcasm, and jokes. They told me several times, tell us when you are joking, and I can give you stories. what happens. So people should be aware of that, etc. So, and be aware of their sensory issues as well. And again, create very clear expectation in writing, like Carrie said, and create also a good communication tool, because everyone communicates in a different way. And I will not go into details, but this is very important. You'll find out very quickly that many of these employees will be what we call SME, the subject matter experts, because many of them are very, very smart, but it doesn't come across very easily until they get more comfortable and until you get used to them. And we see it with so many of our clients, they become the SMEs even better than the developers, etc. And it's not unusual. So this is my 2 cents at the subject. Thank you.
And now for Jim.
Yeah, so this is interesting because what I always tell folks is that it's extremely important for us to produce content, and this is a perfect example of that. You know, this will lead to awareness, which leads to acceptance, which leads to that inclusion. You know, and hopefully will lead to that immersive sense of belonging that everybody deserves to feel. At Google, we always present content around, you know, what the lived experiences are like for many different folks. And we basically are talking about, you know, the difference between, you know, thinking with your head and thinking with your heart. And I always tell people I'm the dumbest leader ever, because I have never thought with my head a day in my life. I always take people into my heart, and so that I can understand them better and understand their situation. And one of the things that always comes out to me is that I just had a Google a person who was in the recruitment pool, and one of the things you can do is you can ask for a champion. And this individual asked for an autistic champion, and that's somebody who works at Google who can advise them about what it's like to work at Google. And when he asked for an autistic champion, you know, he got me. And here I am at the end of my day. I'm stimming, you know, rocking, finger twirling, tapping, playing with my Rubik's Cube. I have this wonderful rubber band that I'll break out if you ask me to solve a complicated problem for you. And the reality is that he looked at me and said, you know, you're not masking at all. It's like, and I said, I don't mask because first of all, I'm too damn old to mask. I'm too tired. And secondly, you know, I always tell people to accept everybody for who they are. And if masking is part of your thing, then, you know, I basically share that with non-autistic individuals at Google, you know, that I mask. I write a user guide so that you can understand what it's like to schedule my time or to be with me on a call, or what my story is, you know, why, you know, how I prefer to put things in writing. And when I am on a call, you know, sometimes I will be masking, and I'm very, very open about those efforts, you know, to educate people. And what we mostly ask for is to people to have the bravery, because that's what it takes. It takes bravery to come out and tell the world, you know, I'm perceived as something foreign. It's like a xenophobia when somebody looks at an autistic individual, and this autistic individual is different than I am, and that's something that should be feared or worried about. And so we basically just bring everything out in the open and produce content that you can watch all year round about, you know, the lived experience. And what it does is it takes that xenophobia right out of the equation. So I hope that I didn't wander too much, but that's my answer to this question.
We're going to move on to question 3, and we're going to have to shorten the response time a little bit so that we can stay on schedule. So this is just about increasing the inclusion as opposed to decreasing exclusion, like the first questions were about. So anyone wants to start here with a short response about things that can increase the feelings of inclusion in the workforce environment, or sorry, workplace environment.
And for me, it's all about you know, we talk about all the time about being on Meet, and you have like a that's our Google product. And we're on these virtual meetings, and back when nobody was going to the office, it was very, very, it made you feel included because everybody was on the virtual conference, and everybody's on video chat. Now what's happening is that people are starting to, half the team will be migrating back to the office due to a geography thing, and other team members are still staying at home. And this just happened to me because I had surgery in December, and I'm not able to fly until like 2 weeks from now. So I wasn't able to be with my team. So we try to make it especially when you have those dispersed work situations, we try to make sure that people use the same protocols that they would use if they were on Meet, even if they're sitting in a room face to face. So in other words, talking to your computer as opposed to talking to the big screen, things like that. And this is something that we're basically dealing with that right now, because I have a really hard time speaking up when I'm in a big meeting. So, but anyway, quick answer.
I can go next. I think the first steps is ensuring that we raise awareness, and implement inclusion into our workforces, such as neurodiversity awareness training and autism awareness month, and those kind of things. I think another step is by removing the barriers of the traditional interview process. That'll help showcase their talents and supportive environments, and ensure a position that matches their skill sets. Employing neurodivergent individuals to unmask and to be their authentic selves. I think it's important to clear communication of deadlines, regular cadence of feedback, and potentially another break, during the day if they need that. And lastly, speaking of the education piece, there are higher education programs that specifically cater to neurodiversity and building, developing, and allowing the individuals to be themselves by giving them the necessary support to have the confidence to start to build a rewarding and long-term lasting career. I mean, the University of Illinois has a great program. I know they're just one of the schools that's out there that does a great job. So that has a great program. There's lots of colleges. Michigan State has one too. So also, anyway, I'll stop there.
Great. I'm happy to go next there, George. One of the greatest things that we have found that impacts our employees with autism the most is placing the accountability on them. For so many of our employees, that is a bit of a culture shock to them. Their entire lives, they've been told they're special. They talk to their parents, talk to their support people, talk this. We're placing the accountability on the individual and want that individual to feel accountable for their work, for coming to work each day, for being on time, having those same expectations that we would have of anyone else. And our employees thrive with that. If you ask them what is different about the culture here at Autonomy Works versus other places you've worked, and for many of them, they'll describe that piece of accountability. They feel like they own their clients, they own their work, they own the accuracy, they own their success or failure here. And that is something that can be cascaded down from everything from IEP meetings in education, allowing individuals to take some ownership of the direction that they have and accountability for their lives and the direction that they want to go with that. So my advice on the greatest impact we've had on our neurodiverse individuals is placing the accountability on them and asking them to rise up to that and meet that challenge. And so far, everybody has really appreciated that and have kind of come to their own in accepting that accountability.
Okay, so Kenneth, you want to go next?
Yeah, and I agree with everybody. I think we just, continue to do great work, like this event, and to continue the conversation and build partnerships and just really, share best practices. And this is I always say this is some of the most challenging work I think, that is out right now. This is very challenging, and there's an aspect of culture that we're talking about shifting. And whenever we're talking about shifting culture, that's an unknown factor because it takes time, it takes events, it takes conversations, it takes a certain threshold of energy. And everybody on the call today has already dedicated, committed their career, their lives to it. So I just commend everybody and just continue doing this great work.
Moisha, would you like to add to this last question?
Sure. The question is, what worked best or made the greatest impact? I don't know that this is easy to say. Maybe that it's different from one person to another. I think it's all together. But the fact that you provide people with meaningful work, a challenging work, and the fact that you give them the support that allows them to succeed. And this includes even a improvement plan when they are not performing well. They need to understand that what they do is a business that costs money to the client. So it's everything. It's the social activities that we have, or just activities that we have every day. It is the accommodation for sensory issues, is the support, etc. But at the end of the day, the goal is to be able to provide the client a quality work. And this is very satisfactory when it works. And the ability to be part of a team that creates something new. That's very good. So every time you bring people to this kind of environment, it is challenging, it is stressful, and individuals on the neurodiverse individuals have a lot of anxieties and depression. That's probably the most problematic thing that we see. And we try to address it as best as we can, but it's not always possible. So, and I think working on soft skills also is very important for the support group to work on soft skills. That's it. It's a package.
At this point, I think we're going to answer some of the audience questions. So let's start with one from Kelly O'Brien. How old are the individuals you guys are starting to recruit for any of the opportunities listed?
Yeah, it's anywhere from a high school graduate on. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, you know, that's pretty much, you know, we're not really very, you know, it just depends on what the clients engage. Some require college degrees, some don't. So it's we're ready to help, you know, anyone at the college, you know, entering college or post high school, you know, degree, you know, at that point. So.
Yeah, George, at Autonomy Works, we're the same thing, legal working age.
Wonderful. And then Moisha, what age for the people you are hiring?
We are hiring people at any age. We have people in their 20s, we have people in their 60s. So we hire them at every age. We encourage people to go to do for education, to expand their education if they want. And we give them also opportunity to learn more of the IT industry inside Spiritech. And we are providing them with courses and we pay for it, etc. But people who want to join us, any age past 18 is okay if they are capable of the work.
Wonderful. And then Jim at Google, what age are you guys hiring for the most part right now?
Well, the Google, you're looking at somebody who's a little bit more experienced, so or with a college degree, so they're you know, everything from you know, entry level roles for college grads to experienced hires like me. So and you know, Google is you have to have, a skill set to get a job at Google, obviously. And so they're usually looking for somebody that has, at least a college degree, or, you have an extensive amount of experience that you're bringing to the table. So.
Wonderful. I'm looking at the Q&A bar right now. Let's see what else. Any other questions have been posted? I don't see any other new questions. Oh, new question right here. Do you refer individuals to specific training programs or guide opportunities within communities? This is coming from Latonia Clark. Anyone want to start for this question?
Well, I can start with that one. Our program is the Stanford Neurodiversity Project, so that's who we are working with to bring in individuals, that identify as neurodistinct, and and we basically are giving. They basically do services for how to do resumes and things like that. So, and you can just go to the Neurodiversity or the Stanford Neurodiversity Project, and there's actually a place where you can register to become a candidate.
And I believe, George, Jim, I have that link in the resources down below. Was there anyone else who wanted to answer that question before we start wrapping up?
We have another question that just came in. What
Okay.
advice do you have for parents or caretakers of a young, in parentheses, 4-year-old neurodistinct children?
I can respond to that question. First of all, just believe that your child can be successful. Believe that your child can transition to independence. Believe that your child can transition to college career. And from that, advocate and find the best educational providers, therapists, support, and just walk the path. But also one thing, when your child does get to 9th grade, just make sure, if you are focused on transitioning to a college career, just make sure that your child has that a college prep curriculum, so when they graduate high school, they would have all the college credits or credits needed to transition to college. That's very critical. From the conversations that we're having, some students are getting to 12th grade and then they're seeing the opportunities to transition to college, but they haven't been on that pathway starting 9th grade, and so that closes opportunities. And just stay part of the community. Stay part of community that can support you and keep track of organizations like ICS, PS2. But just to let you know that there's hundreds of college programs out there now, and so there's a lot of great opportunities. So hopefully that information helps out to some degree. Thank you.
In the chat, we just got a clarification question. When you say college prep classes, do you mean AP classes is the question? Okay,
let me just dive a little bit. No, not AP classes. All right, so so when you talk about K-12 education, sometimes individuals that have a learning disability as autism, they could be taking coursework where they're in what's called resource classes. And resource classes are not the same level as like what they call college prep classes. So not AP, so you have AP, you have honors, and you just have college prep, and then under college prep, you would, it would be, it would be a little bit different than that. So just making sure that they have, college prep opportunities. And the one thing also to keep in mind, some individuals that are neurodivergent, are neurodistinct, they also are what's called gifted. This is this is something that K-12s, communities are overlooking, particularly those individuals that are neurodivergent, neurodistinct, that are transitioning to opportunities that are, that companies, like the companies that are providing on the call now. So you want to make sure that they do have those gifted evaluations, assessments, to see, that they may have some strength in certain areas. So you just really just trying to find the best learning environment.
And this is Jennifer. Just I'm going to do a quick commercial. We may not have time, George, for that last question. But on May 10th, our ADA webinar will be a coaching model for post-secondary transition. So encourage the question asker to join us on May 10th for that session. There are also several sessions that have been pre-recorded in previous months that are up on the website that get to this question and some of the things that Kenneth was just describing. I would just like to give a huge thank you and round of applause for our amazing panel today. It was just an amazing and enriching discussion. And I think overarching, like thinking about moving towards awareness, acceptance, belonging, and inclusion is really the core of these conversations. So thank you all for joining us today, and thank you to the audience for being here. This is just a slide of upcoming events. We'll make sure that these are all online. There are hyperlinks to the events and hyperlinks to sign up for the ADA emails. If you're interested and available at noon today, Autism Speaks has its Illinois specific advocacy webinar. I can throw that in the chat in just a second. There is a Carving Out a Job day-long event that Milestones is hosting on February 16th. And I'm not going to go through these, but I will say that I'm just thrilled that on April 12th, the ADA webinar will be a conversation with Eric Garcia, who is the author of We're Not Broken, Changing the Autism Conversation. Have had a chance to hear him speak and talk to him personally, and I think that will be a really great event, as will the rest of the events that are listed here. We've got a whole list of resources and links, and we'll have all the links that were shared in the chat available in this PDF document that we'll be posting on the website later today. Kirsten, I think, is going to post a survey in a second. And then I also put together 4 short videos in a video clip library that have all the hyperlinks as well for everyone. And we'll get all those things posted later today. Kirsten, did you want to post the survey? Oh, she did. Awesome. She just posted the survey in the chat. We'd love to hear your feedback. It's how we get better and think about future webinars. So please take 2 minutes and fill out the survey if you would. So Kirsten, am I missing anything that I need to do for wrap up?
I don't believe so, no.
All right. Well, George, Carrie, Tim,
Thank you so much,
Moisha,
everyone.
Jim, Kenneth, thank you. This was a really terrific conversation, and we so appreciate you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Glad to be part of it, Jen. Thanks so much for including me.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank you
it.
guys so much for coming.
Have a great day.
I-
See you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.